yourself the daughter of the dragon!
Sure you want to do this, honey?
Call me honey again, I dare ya.
I don't know where you came from. You're welcome anytime.
When we first meet Colleen, she's just trying to survive.
Let's begin.
Colleen works in a dojo.
Is this you?
Yeah.
She looks after kids.
These exercises are about trying to teach you how to perform in the real world.
She represents honor, discipline, self-discipline, but she has this edge.
How about you add another fighter? And when I win, you double my payday.
You are one crazy chick, you know that?
Colleen is in a lot of financial trouble. She's in such dire straits, she ends up going to a fight club.
You ready for the fight of your life?
And she ends up liking it.
Danny has never seen women as strong and as fierce as Colleen.
I want to challenge you, Master.
He has to win her over.
I'm asking you, nicely, to leave.
Her first initial reaction is, you're crazy. But then when she sees how good of a fighter he is, she starts to realize there's something else about him.
Are you dangerous?
Very dangerous.
She's curious. He's so intriguing, and he's so unlike anyone she's ever met.
If you lose, they'll kill you.
That's not gonna happen.
So she kind of takes a gamble.
We can do a lot of good together. You are the only person who can help me.
It's a very dramatic relationship. Mystery is such a big part of our show, and there's an element of, was it fate, was it meant to be? I think she knows that Danny's not good for her, but it's intoxicating.
I'm going with you.
No, you're not.
You need me.
Colleen is amazing. People will love what a great feminine figure she is.
Iron Fist is in a league of its own. It's a show that keeps you on your toes.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So I got to see the first 6 episodes of Iron Fist, so this is going to be my non-spoilery video for that first story arc. I totally love Colleen Wing. She has this infectious energy about her, so I'll talk about her during my top 10 here. This is non-spoilery, so don't worry. If you're new to the channel, I do Marvel videos every week, comic book stuff. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. There's going to be a lot of Iron Fist happening, a lot of other Marvel stuff too, and I'll explain why everybody's going so crazy with the reviews. There are a bunch of critics that are going crazy about it, but I'll address Season 2, Defenders, Immortal Weapons, all the good stuff. So number 10, they're doing an origin story just like they did for the other Marvel Netflix series. So if you remember the way that Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones handled those origin stories, you pick up with the characters in a sort of action sequence as they're getting their call to action, and then they start flashing back to the origin story. So it's not a completely linear experience. They try to find interesting ways to do all that exposition, because even though Daredevil dealt with the concept of resurrecting Elektra, which is pretty wild, Iron Fist goes way beyond that. You're talking about the 7 capital cities of heaven, the immortal weapons, the heart of the dragon Shu Lao. So there's just so many big concepts that they have to find really easy ways of explaining, because this is built for anybody to watch. Like, it's built for the fans, but you have to imagine that they planned it out in the way they planned Daredevil out so that they could explain the character to people that have never read the comic book. So if you have read Iron Fist, even if you don't remember a whole lot about the character, you'll still spot a whole bunch of Easter eggs. But just like Luke Cage comes back after a long absence in his hometown, so does Iron Fist. He sort of has to like recenter himself in the community. Now the big change is that he's a billionaire and he has to prove his identity and take his company back from evil forces. So they sort of address who that is. That's sort of like the big arc of the first half of the season. So just like Luke Cage had to get rid of Cottonmouth and all the crap that was going on in Harlem, a version of that is happening for Danny Rand, but the big bad for him is actually the Hand organization. They're a much bigger deal during the Iron Fist series. So number 9, the comic book origin story versus the TV show origin story. So if you don't know what the comic book Iron Fist origin story is, Iron Fist got his powers by fighting and defeating the dragon Shu Lao. The dragon itself is this mystical creature that's hatched from an egg every 80 plus years. It's basically like the lifespan of an Iron Fist. So when there's an Iron Fist around, he is the defender of his capital city of heaven. There are 7 capital cities of heaven. Iron Fist is the defender of Kunlun. So when you become the new Iron Fist, you defeat the dragon, you take the power from its heart, and you become the defender of that city. But what happens is that after you defeat the dragon, there's sort of this cycle of death and rebirth. A new egg is hatched and a new dragon grows from that egg so that the next Iron Fist, when they come along many, many years down the road, can defeat it, take its power, and become the new defender of the city. The immortal weapons are the defenders of each of those 7 capital cities of heaven. Each of them gets their power from a different source. They have very different abilities, but it's very kung fu based. It's all really trippy, but you have to remember that the Marvel Netflix series is taking place in New York City, not in Kunlun. So there's not as much immortal weapons stuff going on as you might think, and that just flows from Iron Fist sort of having to fit in with the other defenders. So this is a very street level show. So if you just got done reading the comic book, they're wading into the deep end of that pool slowly. So eventually we'll work up to a lot of that stuff. Number 8, the criticism that you've probably been hearing about the show from critics is mostly about the pacing of the first 6 episodes. Remember, they've only screened the first 6 for critics. There are a lot of people that think it's a racial thing. I'm not going to talk about that at all. Please don't get super racial in the comments. Let's try to keep this fun about the comic book stuff. The reason the first story arc of the season feels like a slow burn is because Danny Rand comes back. They have to tell the origin story, who he is, where he's been, where he's going, and what he has to do the minute that he comes back. So it's sort of him stepping into this hornet's nest of hand that has taken over his family's company. So the first arc of the season, just like Luke Cage, is sort of dealing with that. So I think a lot of critics are just mad with the amount of time they spent on that storyline. But remember, you're getting to all the big comic book Iron Fist stuff the back half of the season. So you have to build up to that. The other Netflix series did the exact same thing. So if you've seen any of the other series, you kind of know how they pace their shows. Number 7, Colleen Wing is an early addition to the series. She's one of the main characters, gets her own version of an origin story. She's one of the best characters in the show. I'm so happy with the way it went down. Jessica Henwick has this childlike energy about her that's almost like watching Tom Holland play Spider-Man. Like, oh my god, this is the most amazing, fun thing ever. So I was really happy with the way her storyline went down. They're actually using her to market the series right now, which I feel like was a really good decision. So great performance, great character. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what she does in the back half of the season. Number 6, Colleen Wing comic book stuff. This is actually kind of funny. So they had to step around a lot of big stuff that they're working up to for later, but she and Misty Knight in the comics had a detective agency. So get this, it was originally called Nightwing Investigations. So already huge copyright problem. Later in the comics, they changed that to Daughters of the Dragon. So like they haven't done Misty Knight with the bionic arm yet. There's a lot of things that they have to work up to, but there's so much crossover with the characters that number 5, a lot of the Luke Cage stuff that happened during that series spills over into Iron Fist, primarily through the Claire Temple character, who also continues to be one of the best things about the Marvel Netflix series. So Rosario Dawson is totally amazing during Iron Fist. She kicks way more butt. It's going to be a lot more fun. But, you know, because of the proximity of Harlem, where all the Luke Cage characters come from, there's a lot of Iron Fist spillover. So that's why in the comics, you see Danny Rand spending a lot of his time up closer to Harlem. But you remember, Hell's Kitchen, where Daredevil and Jessica Jones live, is right down here. So geographically, most of Iron Fist takes place in Midtown, so you're a little bit further down here. But because he's a billionaire, he moves around a lot more than other characters. In fact, he owns a lot of buildings in Manhattan just to enable him to run across the rooftops and get around really fast. That is one of the many ways he uses his wealth to help his crime-fighting skills. Number 4, the Thread of the Hand. They're like the big bad for almost all of the Netflix series, so they're a much bigger thing during Iron Fist. He is the self-described mortal enemy of the Hand, and he comes out of Kunlun knowing about all that. So the thing that Stick was trying to tell Daredevil about during Season 1 and Season 2, Maddie, you gotta listen, there's much bigger concerns. The war between the Hand and the Chaste. Iron Fist is way more concerned than the other characters with the threat is coming. Like Jessica Jones, if you told her about crazy ninjas that resurrect people, she would probably throw her drink at you. What I'm expecting from the Netflix series is that they're going to change a little bit of Iron Fist's immortal weapons storyline, where, you know, he's mostly concerned with what's going on in the 7 capital cities of heaven. Every once in a while, somebody from one of those cities goes crazy and they have to put him down. But because we're easing into that, he's mostly dealing with his human problems, especially in the first 6 episodes. So it seems like, you know, number 3, Madame Gao, who is sort of like the Crane mother of the series, you learn why she's so worried about Iron Fist and why nothing seems to bother her, and how they're incorporating those capital cities of heaven into the Hand storyline. It seems like they're crossing a lot of streams. So Madame Gao is the leader of one of the other capital cities of heaven in the comics, but she's pretty evil, so she works through other agents like the Steel Serpent to bring about the destruction of the other capital cities of heaven. Madame Gao in the series is kind of like a Kingpin type character. That's the way they're using her. Very powerful in her own right, who is working with the Hand without necessarily being part of the Hand. So my guess is that what'll happen is that in Season 2 of Iron Fist, Season 3, you'll see more of Madame Gao's side of the story in the other capital cities of heaven. So more on that though. They've teased that there are 2 mystery characters that are coming in the back half of the season. One of them is supposed to be the Steel Serpent. The other one I'm hoping is Orson Randall, who was the previous Iron Fist. He's sort of like a stick for Iron Fist, a wise old mentor who used to be Iron Fist himself and has the same powers. Number 2, the villain that they have confirmed for the series is Zhu Cheng, who is working for Crane Mother. In the comics, he's descended from the Lightning Lords of Nepal, this group of Iron Fist villains with, you guessed it, lightning-based powers. His powers are kind of on the level of Steel Serpent in terms of abilities. He's someone who is possessed by a demon that has enough power to challenge the Iron Fist, but it's a much more powerful version of Danny Rand. I don't think the TV show is going to do it directly, but the demon that possesses him is actually after the dragon's egg that births Shu Lao, the source of Iron Fist's power. The TV show, just like the other Netflix series, has toned down a lot of the really crazy stuff, so just expect the same treatment for a lot of the crazy comic book villains that they introduce. Number 1 though, the series is leading directly into Defenders, which is dropping this summer, probably later this summer because they're still filming it right now. They're also still working on The Punisher, which is supposed to drop much later this year, but I think it just depends on when they finish filming, when they can get the episodes out, so maybe as late as September for Defenders Episode 1. But they confirmed there'd be a 3 to 6 month time jump from the last episode of Iron Fist to the first episode of Defenders. So you have to imagine like you meet Danny Rand in Episode 1 of Iron Fist looking like this, and this is what he looks like in the middle of the Defenders series. So he has a pretty big arc during the first season, but it's on par with the other Netflix characters. Overall, if you're a big comic book fan, I think you'll have a lot of fun with the series. Just remember that it is a slow burn for the first arc of the season till it gets into the really big comic book stuff in the back half. If you are a fan of the Daredevil comic book, and you like the way the series handled that character, it's going to be the same deal for Iron Fist. What I'm going to do later this week is that my Iron Fist videos will just be Easter eggs for blocks of episodes, so I'll do like the first 2 or 3 episodes together, then I'll do the next 2 or 3, and so on and so forth through the rest of the series. But let me know in the comments if you have any special requests, if you want me to do videos for the comic book or talk more about the Immortal Weapons or any of those stories. The giveaways will still be going on when I do those, and there'll be new Flash posting later tonight, new episode. While you wait for that, you can click here to get ready for the Flash tonight, and you can click here to listen to Danny Rand talk about teaming up with Luke Cage. Thank you so much for watching. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.